and welcome to Champion Reviews. I'm Joe. Here with me is my co-host, Dan.
Hello and greetings.
We just got finished with the Man-Spider episode. Honestly, this is probably the best Spider-Man episode, in my opinion. Now, I'm a big fan of horror, as anyone who knows me will attest to. I love classic horror, especially monster movies. Those are my favorites for the horror genre. And this was a monster film.
It even beats Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, it is a mummy movie. Although I love that movie. But this episode has Punisher pursuing Spider-Man into the warehouse, only to discover he's turned into a man-spider. He's chased out, barely escapes in his battle van that came to his rescue, which is now, damaged with acid, and he has to go for the spare battle van, which is later destroyed by Man-Spider. As Man-Spider, throughout this episode, is trying to grapple, you have the tug-of-war between the monster and Peter. It's a Jekyll and Hyde situation in his brain. And as the episode progresses, he tries to reach out to certain people, like Flash Thompson, whom he saves from Morbius as Morbius is devouring him.
He recognizes Morbius as a villain.
Yeah, and is temporarily shunted aside. He then sees a redhead and thinks it's MJ very briefly and panics and tries to reach out to her. Doesn't succeed. Of course, later he goes to, I think, the Parker residence where Harry fights it off, and MJ, who was already thinking of ditching Peter, decides, I need some D. Okay. Sorry, there's no way to sugarcoat it.
I'm not thinking about that at all.
But here's the thing. She admits that she thinks that maybe the Man-Spider recognized her and was trying to reach out to her. And as it runs off, the Man-Spider roars, almost like a scream of pure agony when it realizes it had hurt Harry and that it might have hurt MJ, or it nearly did. And it just seems to scream almost like somebody help me, because it's trapped in this body.
He only really attacked and hurt two people.
Morbius
and Punisher.
Both of whom deserve it. And honestly, if they were destroyed in Morbius' case and killed in Punisher's case, I doubt anyone would really weep. Except for maybe Chip. He's a nice guy. But, ish. But you know what? Frank and Michael would have deserved it. With interest. Now, what's interesting is this struggle, and while this story was never well done in the comics, it is perfect here. I wish it was stretched out for another episode. But Kraven also comes in, trying to save the day, trying to keep everyone from killing someone, and trying to help Crawford restore Spider-Man as she's finally figured a miracle cure to help Spider-Man balance his X gene and his Spider gene and perfectly fuse them into one set of genetics, so that in later seasons, a lot of Spider-Man's accomplishments and strength and whatnot are toned up because he's stronger thanks to his X gene mutation. But he captures Punisher in one of the most badass and frightening moments. I love that moment where you have Frank, tracking him with his tracer, only for it to go ding, 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 right where he is, and you have Frank, what the devil? And it lands right on the vehicle and roars right through in the windshield before it slams a fist through. And he drives off the cliff. The vehicle blows up. Frank's sent flying. Thank heavens for his body armor. And that takes the shrapnel. And he's captured as Peter disappears into the Man-Spider, having no more control over himself. And Frank is later freed, hours later, by Kraven, rescued from being a spider meal. I would hate for Peter to eat such junk food, but whatever. How uncouth. Anyways. But then he disturbs the web because Punisher's stupid and never thinks. They manage to subdue the Man-Spider with some tech. And then Crawford shows up to stop Punisher from destroying everyone, because Frank's stupid. And she talks him down, and you get... Actually, I find the only heartwarming moment I've ever seen in a Punisher with Punisher ever. Now I actually used to read Punisher comics at one point. I think we all have at some point. Read just a few stories, and I never really was impressed with them. I know you read more of them than I did, because you know about that Italian family it is.
That's essentially the only issue I really saw, and it was a Spider-Man story.
Yeah, I read that story. I liked it.
Yeah,
but that said, here it's the best adaptation also of the flashback of the death of Frank's family, as you just have the yellow kite in the air. I imagine being held by his daughter, and then you have the gunshots, the screams, the kite falls, and it seems to reflect a skull. Well, a crying skull of some sort. And just the animation does better than I've ever seen any actor, and there have been some killer actors who've done it.
I mean, look at that one movie.
Yeah, the 2004 movie was really good.
We're going to have to review that.
Absolutely. But I like how Frank just has this, destroyed expression on his face. Just, he's pleading with the heavens just for a moment. He wants his family back, his kids.
Mm-hmm.
When Maria tells him, this man is a victim, just as your wife and 2 kids were. The only monster here is you. And that's when he has that expression and has that flashback.
It's as if he really didn't think ever since that moment, because if he had to sit and think about it, it hurt too much.
And here, he finally thought about it. And I like how they showed him, he's now realizing, has he become worse than the monsters who took his family away?
Yeah, and the facial expression on Frank is quite human.
Yeah.
Like he never wanted to think about it.
And he never wanted to be the monster, but he's become the monster. And it's like all of his sins over the past 30 years are suddenly coming to life around him. And it's a really heartbreaking scene. But then he finally makes, for the first time in his life, the right decision. And he even respects Spider-Man's wish for anonymity. When Crawford says, take your coat off and drape it over him. Why? He wears a mask. Let's respect his wishes. And you're Frank. Okay. And he even says, here's his mask.
Mm-hmm. As much as Frank's story is concluded here, I would have been curious to see him show up in a future episode.
He does. He actually tries to become more a PI later and tries to swear off killing.
I'll have to... I can't wait to see those episodes.
It's a couple of Green Goblin ones.
Okay.
And Frank comes back as actually a PI and is trying to go clean, and he's vowed never to kill again. And, no joke, he has a few killing shots on quite a few people, and he vows never again. And he just wants to do... Because I just remember in those episodes, he's depressed because he thinks... He's realizing how much he's destroyed people's lives. And I think he ended up visiting a few people in prison, and he realized, with the hatred in their eyes, that they're like, I'll get even with you. You took my family from me. And he's going, what have I done? And he vows that he wants to save lives, not break them. But apparently this is the only universe where he never relapses. So it's and he threw away most of his extremely lethal weapons. He still has some, but because, the man's got to defend himself. But
with people as powerful as the Wrecker...
Or the Green Goblin.
Yeah, you do need to be able to defend yourself.
Now, he's still stupid, but he's a terrible PI, but at least he's trying to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the only universe where I actually find myself sympathizing with Frank and thinking him a well-rounded character. Most other universes, he's just terrible.
Now, we could get to that episode later when it comes up.
Yeah. Now, that said, real quick, Craven also ends the episode with a marriage proposal to Frank. I'm kidding. Saying, we ought to team up sometime. We'd be magnificent as a team. As a dynamic duo of sorts. And I'm just kidding.
Okay, Alan Scott.
Yeah. Because Alan Scott, I think... Well... Our fan casting has always been of what's his name? The original Batman actor, Adam West.
Adam West.
Yeah, he would have been I really wish they had made that movie of Justice Society. Just had him as Alan Scott with his old sense of humor of Double Down Pound.
Yeah.
But Spider-Man is restored to life. And that's when we hear, once again, Craven's nickname for Mariah Crawford, which is My Little Calypso. Because Craven is a very well-educated man in this, unlike in the comics. And, for example, he quotes Francis Bacon regarding revenge and says that justice ought to be our only pursuit rather than vengeance when it comes to bring someone down like this. And that vengeance is a piss-poor reason to hunt, to chase people down. And upon hearing that Craven, like Crawford, just explain real quickly the myth of Calypso. A myth Spider-Man's already familiar with, but he's so out of it. He's
trying to, his mind is trying to focus.
And I like how he just says, like, well, for one thing, he's scared initially of Frank's skull, and because the last thing he saw. And the other thing is, I like how he says, well, I guess you're my Calypso too, in a way. And it's a really beautiful moment. And I like that the episode ends with Spider-Man saying, I think it's the start of a beautiful day. And no Spider-Man comic, except for those with Ben Reilly, ever ended with Spider-Man saying, it's going to be a good day.
I'm glad
I'm Spider-Man. I'm glad I'm alive. Because Peter Parker does have chronic manic depressive problems. He's got depression.
And with the costume, there is some PTSD involved.
But Ben was never all that much of a fatalist, as much as Spider-Man. Well, he was at one time, but after his years abroad, he became more an optimist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love this episode. This is my favorite. How would you rate it?
Yeah. One thing that I did think of was, when they're in the warehouse, you have Frank Cat. You have... here it is. You have a bit of a jump scare with Man-Spider.
Yeah.
It's interesting that I think that shows more the Man-Spider's speed. How fast he just suddenly showed up.
Where was that?
At the beginning when...
Oh, yeah, with the one worker. Yeah.
Right before that.
Oh, yeah.
When Frank is fighting him in the...
Yeah, it's just how fast that Man-Spider is.
Yeah, and if you ask me how I'd rate this, at a 4.
I agree. I was about to say a 4. This is the best episode I find there ever is or ever will be in the series. It's perfect. I love it. I've loved it since I was about 5 to 6 years old.
Oh, yes. You went on and on about this episode. And this was one of the few episodes, aside the Venom saga, that you'd watch over and over and over again.
And I'm quite proud of it. I think you also loved it when you were young.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, if you like this video, like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. And do watch this trilogy of episodes. They are the best. So, yeah, we'll see you later.